November 9th, 2004, my oldest son, Michael, he was shot and killed by a Kenosha police officer. We didn't know what was going on. Nobody is talking to me. I want to know the truth.
You mentioned that you'd run into some of the members of law enforcement, and some live pretty close. How close is close?
There's a grocery store right down the road here, and one day I'm walking through there, and who's coming in the other direction but it's the officer who killed my son. Wow. And I gotta confront him eye to eye.
Police-involved shootings have sparked controversy and intense debate. But long before Black Lives Matter versus Blue Lives Matter, before Colin Kaepernick versus Donald Trump, there was a man in Kenosha, Wisconsin by the name of Michael Bell.
There's no video on YouTube that tells you what to do after a police officer kills your son.
After his son was killed during a traffic stop, this retired military officer would spend more than a decade searching for the truth and demanding reforms.
I thought there was going to be an investigation similar to what happens when an aircraft crashes. Look at all the facts and make a determination of what went wrong. That's not what happens in law enforcement.
We came to Kenosha, Wisconsin to ask the question Michael Bell has been asking the entire country for more than a decade. When the police kill, should they investigate themselves? November 9th, 2004. Just after 2 a.m. 21-year-old Michael Bell Jr. is parked in front of his home when he's approached by officers of the Kenosha, Wisconsin Police Department. A police dash cam captures the beginning of the traffic stop. But important details about what happens that night remain unclear more than a decade later. Off camera, Bell can be heard arguing with officers. Things escalate as the encounter turns physical. The confrontation spills into Bell's front yard, where he's tasered by an officer. By the time more officers arrive on the scene, the encounter has moved up a narrow driveway to the right of Bell's house. And it's there, with his mother and sister watching from just 15 feet away. Then Michael Bell Jr. is shot and killed by officers of the Kenosha Police Department.
About 10 minutes after 2, my phone rings. I reach over and I pick it up, and it's my oldest daughter. And she says, "Dad, you need to come to the hospital. Michael's been shot." And in disbelief, I'm like, "Michael's been shot? Michael doesn't do anything to get shot. What are you talking about?" I walked into the hospital, and I remember to the left was an emergency room, and I saw doctors working on my son. And to the right, I saw about 5 police officers and the district attorney kind of huddled in conversation. They never said anything to me that night. The loss of a loved one. I describe it as somebody jack up a car, you go underneath it, kick the jack out, and let the full weight of that car rest on you. That is probably the closest thing that one will experience. My son was killed November 9th, 2004 at 2 o'clock in the morning. And on Thursday, 2 days later, I got a phone call at noon asking me for a comment because they found the shooting justified. I was alarmed because I knew that there was a lot of eyewitnesses. And none of those people had completed all their statements to the law enforcement. That bothered me right away, because how could you conduct an investigation and be done in less than 2 days?
After a brief internal investigation, Kenosha police concluded that its officers had acted according to department policy. Their official conclusion? That Michael Bell Jr. had been shot in self-defense after he'd grabbed an officer's holstered firearm. If Bell had grabbed an officer's gun, then self-defense might justify the use of deadly force. But eyewitness testimony has never been entirely consistent with this claim. And at least one Kenosha detective wasn't satisfied with his department's investigation.
I didn't know Mike. Mike was just some guy. He was the father of the victim of a police shooting. However, I was in the Bureau. I was like a fly on the wall watching what was happening, and I was disgusted by some of the things that I saw.
Russell Beckman is a 29-year veteran of the Kenosha Police Department. But frustration eventually led him to resign from the force. He'd eventually go on to aid the Bell family as a private investigator.
They ended up saying that this shooting was okay so quickly before the forensic reports were done, before the drug and alcohol reports on Michael's son were in. That was unbelievable to me.
When most of us think about investigations, we imagine something out of Law and Order. It's about finding criminals, putting the bad guy behind bars. But in other contexts, investigations are often about a lot more than just figuring out who to blame. When a plane crash occurs, commercial airlines don't investigate themselves. That's the job of the National Transportation Safety Board. The NTSB's independent investigators analyze accident scenes, determine the factors that led to the crash, and develop guidelines to prevent future tragedies. The end result is a transparent evaluation of what happened, why, and how to keep it from happening again. Each accident investigation is an opportunity to make the entire industry safer. But across America, police shootings are judged by an entirely different standard. When a civilian is killed during a police encounter, the resulting investigation might be led by the same department and even the co-workers of the officer under investigation. Even under the best circumstances, the potential for a conflict of interest are very real. And so is the possibility of repeating the same mistakes. In the case of Michael Bell Jr.'s death, the Kenosha Police Department's investigation would eventually come under serious scrutiny. Despite official claims that Bell was shot after a struggle for an officer's gun, forensic testing conducted months after the internal investigation failed to find Bell's fingerprints or DNA on the weapon or holster. The surprising discovery cast doubt on the entire investigation, and the Bell family found itself demanding answers.
We want to know the truth. We want to know the factual truth about what happened to our son. I called the governor, I was shut down. I called the attorney general, I was shut down. I was shut down from every different aspect that you can consider. Nobody would give me the time of day. When my son got killed, everybody in local government became a defendant. The mayor now had to defend his city against a liability. The police and fire commissions that were established, they make a decision whether to open this case up or shut it down. I didn't know the battle that I was going to be in for. After my son's death, these are the words right here. I get notified that the Wisconsin Professional Police Association is awarding the officers who killed my son with meritorious service awards for exemplifying the highest tradition of law enforcement. And then I knew that, darn it, if I can't fix it locally, I need to fix it on a national level.
Michael Bell vows to get his son's case reopened no matter what it takes.
Stonewalled by local officials, Michael Bell embarked on a statewide media campaign that eventually took on national proportions.
Not us. Who? If not now, when is this going to happen? Why national ad? This is ground zero. I see this problem nationally. Audacity, audacity, always audacity.
And he purchased billboards.
Said we have 26 additional billboards, and I said I'll take them all.
Lots of billboards.
They are in your face.
The billboard designed to turn up the heat on lawmakers, the court of public opinion.
Anytime you investigate yourself, the investigation is tainted.
Well, the system is set up in such a way that every single time it's justified.
His effort to reopen his son's investigation was taking on a new form. He'd found new allies, and the call for independent investigations of police-involved deaths was becoming a statewide issue.
Until a change is made in policy or personnel, this father says he is not backing down.
Lawmakers hearing more than 3 hours of testimony about a controversial bill. The Criminal Justice Committee heard arguments over a bill that would create a statewide review board to investigate any police-involved death.
In the spring of 2014, after nearly a decade of effort, Bell and his allies had achieved a new milestone in criminal justice reform. Wisconsin became the first state in America to require independent investigation for all police-involved deaths. And in sharp contrast to the deep political divides typical of these issues, the bill was passed unanimously with bipartisan support and signed into law by a Republican governor. Inspired by the Wisconsin legislation, several states have adopted similar reforms. But across the rest of the country, local police departments and the district attorneys with whom they work closely may continue to conduct opaque investigations into their own officers. And while the Wisconsin law is a starting point, Bell continues to advocate for related reforms to help make investigations more independent, transparent, and effective.
I believe the officer in my son's case made an honest mistake. The problem that I have here is that there needs to be an external learning model, like the NTSB, that all they do is determine what were the true causes of what occurred and issue safety recommendations to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
But even with everything Bell has accomplished, the new Wisconsin laws aren't retroactive, and the campaign to have his own son's death investigation reopened continues. What do you think Michael would think about the work you're doing now?
I think he's laughing at what he's putting me through personally. I almost quit all this. And then I remember in August 2012, I woke up from a dream. My son walked up to me, he put his hands on my shoulder, he looked me in the eye, he says, "Dad," he says, "can you believe it? I'm here early for my birthday party." And he put his arm around my neck, and I gave him a hug. And I said, "I'm gonna give it one more try when I woke up."